Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to do a buyer's guide on a CL500. This is actually Matt from HIGHPEAK's cheap CL500. A lot of people have asked, they wanted to know the fate of the car. So we have asked Matt if we can do that video and he's agreed. I'll leave the link to his video below of him buying it, reviewing it and bringing it to us for inspection. So we're going to do something a bit different. If you've seen his video before, you'll know that this has got quite a few faults. So it's a good opportunity to do like a buyer's guide. I used to do loads of buyer's guides for different magazines. So we may as well just start doing them for ourselves, for our YouTube channel. So we're going to go through what you should be looking for if you're looking to buy one of these. And we will tell you at the end what Matt is doing with this car. Right, so the first thing I always used to say in my buyer's guides for magazines was, don't buy the cheapest one. It's not going to be the best one. You always want one that's got full service history, either main dealer, specialist. With this car, ideally, specialist minimum. If it was a C200 or something like that, then a run-of-the-mill garage could do it. But this was like Mercedes version of a Bentley. You know, you want to make sure it's got that paperwork to back up that it's been serviced properly and it's had money spent on it. I think this car was 70 grand new, 80 grand for a 500 model, something like that. So that's the first thing. Has the car got 2 keys? If the answer is no, well, that's £300 on its own for a spare key. You want a spare key for a CL500 or any Mercedes for that matter. So I always say to people, full service history, has it got 2 keys? That is a really good indication to has the car had money spent on it, because you can pick these up for that cheap now. It's crazy actually. Like I've had this conversation with Matt, so he paid 1,500 quid for this car. Obviously it's not turned out to be worthwhile to repair. But the conversation I had with him was, if he was to buy one for 5,000, 6,000, it's still a cheap car. It's still a 70, 80,000 pound car. That's 5 or 6 grand. It's still cheap. So that's that. Before you view a car, you can always log on to the MOT history website. You can use the registration number, check the MOT history. Some people say, oh, it's had advisories or this, that and the other. Having advisories on an MOT is not a bad thing. Having MOT fails isn't a bad thing, because then if it's passed or those advisories have disappeared, it means the owner has had those jobs done and they've now gone, providing they've not had a bent MOT. So it's another way of determining, is somebody spending money on this car? I always say to people, when you're viewing, this is any car, but especially something like this, make sure everything works. Take your time in the car and play with all the gadgets, because anything that doesn't work is generally not going to be cheap to fix. Now, I'm not saying everything will work, because it won't, because it's an old car. Don't forget, it's an old car. Things aren't going to work. But make sure as many things as possible work. This car was so advanced for its time. You know, it had loads of technology on it. And that's why people forget how old they are and get really upset when they need money spending on them, because they just don't realise. I always say to customers, you are maintaining the cost of the car when it was new. So you're maintaining an £80,000 car. Can you afford to do that? If the answer's no, then don't buy it, because the price of the parts have not depreciated with the value of the car. The price of the parts have stayed the same. If they've probably gone dearer, and the older the car gets, the more parts it needs. So always remember, you're not maintaining a £5,000 car, you're maintaining an £80,000 car. Right, engine. CL500, they all used an M113 V8. To be honest, probably the best engine Mercedes produced, so I would say not many concerns to go off there. Most common fault with those is crankshaft sensor. Cuts out when hot, won't restart till it cools down. Sometimes you'll pull in a petrol station, fill up, pay, come back, car won't start. That's probably the most common issue with this engine. Oh, maybe oil leaks, rocker cover and breather boxes leak, but honestly, that engine is bulletproof. So if you're buying a 500 or a 55 AMG, no concerns there really. Gearbox is pretty good, considering if you keep up with service schedules on it. I know Matt's keen on gearbox servicing, and so am I. Most gearbox failures are because of lack of servicing. So engine wise, no major concerns if you're looking at one of these. Just have a look here when you're looking around the bonnet. Make sure no mice have been chewing your wires, which they have on this one. There and there. You don't want that. You don't want mice under your bonnet. This is ABC system. It is hydraulic suspension, active body control. Now that is an expensive item. Doesn't matter what component fails on that system, whether it's a shocker, a pump, a pipe that bursts, it's all expensive. And because of the age of the cars, they need them. They do break. A lot of people get really upset when this system breaks. You can search it all over the internet. It's 20 years old. It's going to break at some point. But we'll go around that, and we'll show you that system and again what to look out for. That's why MOT advisories are good. So if you saw slight misting from a damper on an MOT advisory, that is an ABC damper. So that is a couple of grand. So it's things like that to look out for. Let's send it up. I'll show you what's common underneath. Right, that wind's loud, isn't it? Brakes. I always say, find yourself a bypass, motorway, whatever you can. Get up to 50, 60 mile an hour, apply the brake firmly. Can you feel any pulsing in the brake pedal? If you can, it's a sign that you've got warped discs. These cars do not like non-genuine disc and pads. So that's another good one. If a car's been sat on a car lot for a while for sale, you might get a little bit of feedback through the brake pedal, but if you look at these discs, as you can see, they're rusty a bit, but that's because it's been sat around doing nothing. But again, MOT advisories, check them. Obviously, you're not going to be stood underneath a car like this, checking everything, but to just demonstrate, the suspension is a multi-link suspension, which means there's a lot of ball joints and a lot of suspension bushes. If look here, say like that bush, split, so that's knackered. We've got playing ball joints. Don't know if you can see that. And then you've got this. This is the ABC strut. As you can see, that is rusty, but it's not leaking and it is working. But there is play. Probably better if I push the wheel. Oh, there you go. So that joint that's gone in there actually is in this bottom arm. To separate that arm from that strut, you have to remove that screw. And as you can see, that screw has seen better days. So, worst case scenario, you could end up replacing that strut for that, because that ball joint's gone, because it's extremely rusty. The chances of getting that screw out are slim. Yes, you could drill it out, which would take a while, but you've still got a very rusty strut. And this is where people get upset with these cars. So just referring backwards a little bit, it's a multi-link suspension. Lots of ball joints, lots of bushes, lots of things to go wrong. I don't want to put people off buying these. I feel like, you know, making it sound awful, but that's why I'm so keen on making sure you get them on with good history, because given the age of the car, somebody who's looked after it, a lot of these components might have been replaced. So I'm showing you what to look for, but at the same time, if it's been looked after properly, a lot of these things would definitely have been replaced at this kind of age. ABC suspension again. So on this particular vehicle, Matt checked the MOT history, as we were speaking about before, and it came up that it had a broken coil spring. Now, people don't know that these have springs. The spring is inside the strut, which is in there. You might see the boot split on this, you might be able to see. See? That's a spring. So the strut itself, the ABC strut, is literally a shock absorber. There's still a spring on there. So if you saw that on a sheet, you'd think, oh, no big deal. £200–300, I need a spring back on the road. Well, it's not the case, because you can't replace a spring on its own. And if you look at this side, you can see it broken. You see around there? See that there? That's where it's broke. And unfortunately, that's a full strut. Without pricing one up, to be 100% exact, I do know they're about £1,500. There's not an aftermarket replacement. Not that's good enough for the job. I have heard of people putting like non-branded ones on and they get 12 months out of them. Bodywork. I think the majority of the body is aluminium, so you'd presume no corrosion. You can still get corrosion, as you can see down the bottom of this door. And also, it's not rust, it's corrosion. You see there's no orange? So always check your bodywork as well. As I was saying before, with ABC systems, that pipe is quite badly corroded there. And when that bursts, it's not like a brake pipe where you can replace a section. You've got to buy the whole pipe, which goes all the way around the car. That ABC system is just expensive no matter what. But it's a good system, it does work. It's very comfortable. When it's working, it is tip top. And to be fair, the amount of CLs, SLs, S-classes that I do have in with the system, I don't have too much trouble with it. I think this year I've replaced about 3 or 4 ABC pumps, which, yeah, it's an expensive job, but it's an expensive car. Another common issue we used to have on these back in the day. Make myself sound older than I actually am, don't I? I'm not actually that old, but anyway, when this was the latest CL, we used to do quite a few door wiring harnesses because this has a really sophisticated hinge system. So it's such a big car, you can actually open the door in a tight space. It's actually a really good system, but on these early, well, just the CL in general, the wiring used to snap in the hinge and we used to have to replace it all the way into the door. So my tip would be, I said earlier in the video, make sure everything works. Make sure it works with the doors closed and the doors open, because in this case with this car, the driver's door has got bad wiring and it has got issues. But yeah, we used to do quite a few of them back in the day. Well, when I used to do the magazine work, they always used to ask me for some servicing prices, to give you a rough idea. A service, probably, well, it is about £200 plus VAT. That's an oil and filter, health check and report. B service, which would be oil and filter, 2 air filters and a cabin filter inside the car. That's 300 plus VAT. You'll find most specialists are very similar, so I'm just talking for me, but most people are similar. Spark plugs, these big boys have 2 plugs per cylinder, so you've got 16 spark plugs on this car. I think they're due every 36,000 miles, or every 4 or 5 years, something like that. That is 200 quid plus VAT, if I'm not mistaken. Gearbox servicing, again, due between 36,000 miles every 4 or 5 years. That's about 200 plus VAT. They're your main service items. Obviously you've got fuel filters, you've got brake fluid and all your smaller end stuff, but like I say, that's the kind of stuff the magazines used to ask us for. Front discs and pads, you know, you'd be looking at probably £400 or £500. You can also have the ABC system serviced. There is a filter inside there. Again, I have done that service for Matt on his SL55. Mercedes don't give a service plan for the ABC system, but it has got a filter, it has got oil. You can change it, so we do offer an ABC service. I did it once for a customer, and about 6 months later, he had a strut fail on him, and he actually rang up and said, "Oh, I've had an ABC service, why has my strut failed? That's why I've had the service, it shouldn't fail." Well, changing the fluid and the filter is not going to stop any old components from breaking. It is going to make the system perform better. It's going to be healthier for your ABC pump, having nice fresh fluid in, but it is not going to stop anything failing, because he was quite confused why he thought having that £400 ABC service was going to make sure his ABC system never broke. Well, that's not the case. Is it going to help the system? Yes. It is definitely going to do a better job of performance-wise for the ABC system, and it's definitely, your pump's got to prefer it, because the main item to fail is probably an ABC pump. They are £1,000, it's right down there. Pumps are £1,000, currently not available from Mercedes, so I've had terrible trouble trying to get one. The couple I've done this year, I've struggled to get the right pumps. That's about it. Would I have a CL 600? No, I would not. Get a 500, don't get the 600, or even better, get the 55 AMG. But there's more things on that to go wrong. But I would stay away from a V12. This engine was the one you want. So yeah, I hope I've not made that sound too bad and put everyone off buying one. I think they're great. I love the car. I mean, for what you can get for the money, you know, it's unbelievable. You're basically driving a Bentley for Ford Focus money, but the bills are going to come with it. I had a customer, ignore that. I had a customer buy an S-Class, same era, and he was new to Mercedes, and he said, I've been recommended to you. How much do you think it'll cost me to run this car? So I said, well, I reckon around £2,000 a year in service and repairs. And he was like, all right. So he took that on board. I said, any change you've got after that, put it to one side for the next year. And he has been coming to me now for about 4 or 5 years, and every year he says, you were spot on in your £2,000 a year. Sometimes it's been 1,000, sometimes it's been 15, but he's been happy to spend that kind of money on his car. You know, a lot of people lease a car for £600-700 a month. So, you know, he's got a luxury vehicle, costs him a couple of grand a year to maintain, and he's happy. So, I suppose everybody wants to know what Matt's doing with this. Well, it's going to the scrapyard. Well, I say scrapyard, it's going to the recycle centre. It's going to be broken up for bits, and hopefully it can save some other CLs. Unfortunately, it's not cost effective for him to repair. Obviously, everything's repairable, but to get it back on the road to a good standard, it would just cost more than what you could go out and just buy a good one for. Because like I say, if you've got a £6,000 budget, you could get a really good one of these. So the fate of Matt's cheap CL500, it's got to go and save some others. I can see why he bought it. He took a gamble. You know, if that was 2-3 grand to fix it, get it back on the road, I think he'd have gone for it, to be honest. But there's just a little bit too many jobs on this one. But fair play for him taking the risk. You know, he's took the risk on a very, very cheap one. Took a gamble. Fair play. So that concludes this buyer's guide / the fate of Matt's car. Hope you liked it. Like and subscribe. I am thinking to start doing more buyer's guides. I'm not going to be reviewing a car. I'll be giving you my knowledge on what to look for when buying one of these cars. Like I say, I used to do loads for magazines, and I've kind of stopped doing it because I thought I'd rather just do it for myself, for the channel. So thanks to Matt for letting us do one on his car. Also thanks for having us on his channel as well. I'll leave a link below to his channel and to the original CL video. And that's it. Look out for the next video.